We have multiple Toronto Blue Jays moves to discuss today, as there's been some very interesting action surrounding the Toronto Blue Jays, and one of those moves has Jays fans very disappointed. So I'm going to break that down in this episode, as well as discuss a brand new report surrounding a new Toronto Blue Jays target that has emerged. And this report might surprise you. Stay tuned for all that in this episode, but before we get into it, quick reminder, hit that subscribe button. If you're a part of the percentage that aren't subscribed to the channel, it's free, and this is the place to be for daily Blue Jays coverage. So let's dive right into it. There's a lot to go over today. Now, obviously, the Toronto Blue Jays offseason is in full effect. We're on Juan Soto watch, following last season, of course, on Shohei Ohtani watch. But we're on Juan Soto watch right now. Things are getting crazy, but I'm going to take a step back from that for today's video and kind of just discuss a new report that has come out revealing that the Blue Jays are targeting an interesting player, but also some moves that have went down. And we'll start with the moves. And this one came at a bit of a surprise today. A couple hours ago, Scotty Mitchell said, per sources, Matt Hague is leaving the Blue Jays to join the Pittsburgh Pirates hitting coaching job. He was a popular guy with players and coaches. Nice promotion for the 39-year-old. Thomas Hall here, wow, definitely a significant loss for the Jays hitting department. Time to pour one out for the Buffalo Boys. So this is interesting, and a lot of Jays fans were a little bit upset about this, and there's a lot of different reasons that they can do this. For one, obviously Matt Hague was with the Bisons for a while, and now last season he came up and was with the Blue Jays. And again, the hitting was pretty bad for the Jays, but if there was one guy who fans, players, everyone alike liked, it was Matt Hague. He had a great relationship with the players. He had a great relationship with the coaching staff, and he was really pretty coveted by this Blue Jays team. And just like that, he is gone. And it's because, of course, he got a promotion. He was offered the hitting coaching job with the Pittsburgh Pirates, which is a big job promotion for him. So congratulations to him on that front, especially coming from the Bisons a couple of years ago, now moving all the way up to hitting coach. We can see this here again. Hague was popular with the players and coaches and now gets a promotion to work on Derek Shelton's staff in Pittsburgh. 39-year-old served as a AAA Buffalo Bisons hitting coach in 2023 after spending 2 seasons prior with the AA New Hampshire Fisher Cats, both affiliates of the Jays. And he played 43 big league games spread out between 2012, 14, 15, spending his final year in the big leagues with the Jays. So, again, we saw him last year, and clearly he was well respected around the league as well, because he got a pretty big job being the hitting coach of the Toronto Blue Jays. And again, it's a bit of a surprise because everybody thought that he was going to stay, be hitting consultant and all these things. But the more you talk about it, the more it kind of makes sense, because again, they are doing a complete turnover of the hitting department. They got rid of Guillermo Martinez and they replaced him with David Popkins, who is the Minnesota Twins former hitting coach. So I think if they wanted to keep Matt Hague, they could have promoted him to the hitting coach in position. But I think they wanted to do a complete overhaul, and that's ultimately what they've done here. And they got rid of Guillermo, they hired David Popkins, and now of course Matt Hague is gone. He's not going to be a part of this Blue Jays team anymore. So again, after a couple of horrible years of hitting, it's now at the point where they're doing a complete change of personnel, and everybody's going to miss Matt Hague. He was very well respected around the MLB, but again, things like this happen, and they have David Popkins, who is also very well respected around Major League Baseball. He was a part of a very good Minnesota Twins hitting team over the past few seasons, and now he's going to be the forefront of hopefully turning around this putrid Blue Jays offense. And maybe they can do that in the form of Juan Soto as well. But another move they've made here, this is a minor one, but may as well throw it in there. Blue Jays announced that Mark Tratta has been promoted to Director of Amateur Scouting. This is a big draft coming up for the organization with a shot at a high pick in the lottery. And again, Toronto Blue Jays are coming off of a really bad year. They went 74-88, and they need to nail these draft picks. We know one of their, it's being very interesting because they have one of their picks now that has a chance to actually be high in the a good pick in the lottery pick for the first time in a very long time, because they've been competitive since really 2020. 2019 was the last season. They're very bad. And he's been promoted now to head of amateurs scouting, which is interesting because, again, we're not going to see too much of this on the daily basis by watching the Jays and talking about them a lot. But from an internal perspective, hopefully Mark Tratta has does well in this upcoming draft, because they need to hit on this. Now, whether they go for a position player, whether they go for a pitcher, still up in the air, but it's another move that they've done. But something else I want to dive into today is that about 45 minutes ago, a report came out that free agent infielder Yoan Moncada is generating interest from more than 5 teams, and the Blue Jays are included among the Yankees and Mariners. And Moncada is a very interesting player, and as you start to look ahead now into the offseason, the Jays are obviously going to have a lot of backup plans and contingency plans if Juan Soto signs elsewhere. And ultimately, it's unlikely, I would say, that the Jays get Juan Soto, even though more and more reports are coming out lending credit to the fact that they're all in on him. They have a meeting sometime this week. It could have already happened for all we know, but it is happening this week. That's what Jeff Passan said, and we mentioned it in our video yesterday, so check that out if you haven't already. But Yoan Moncada is one of the more intriguing players that we've seen. And again, last season, he's been riddled with injuries for the majority of his career. He's had different stretches back, 2018-19, where he played over 130 games. And then, of course, in 2021 and 2022, his big season was, of course, in 2019 when he was an MVP finalist, 5.2 WAR. But he's coming off a season where he actually hit fairly well, his best hitting season since 2021, but it was in 13 games. So it's like you can't really take that into perspective that much. However, the season before in 2023, he in 92 games, he put up a 0.7 WAR. So it's interesting for Yoan Moncada because he's a guy that, in theory, used to be very good. He used to be highly valued, and he's a third baseman. So it would fit the narrative, and it would fit into the Toronto Blue Jays pretty seamlessly if they're able to get him for cheap. Because you're looking at now the Blue Jays starting, lineup and their roster. Assuming Vladdy stays at first, there's been some rumblings of him moving to third base on a part-time basis if they get a guy like Pete Alonso. And again, a lot of this is going to depend on how this regular season finishes out and how they actually. Everything changes if they get one of the big fish, whether that's Bregman, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, any Corbin Burns. Obviously, he's a starting pitcher, but it was still kind of work its way down into their salary and how they're going to, allocate their resources. But it's interesting because when you're looking at it from Yoan Moncada, he has potential to be very good. He at one point was a very good to elite defender. He was an elite defender, and now he's an interesting player. And at third base, they'd be able to slide him in, and you'd be really hoping on a bounce back year. The problem with this is they kind of went with this philosophy last season where they were hoping on bounce back years from Vladimir Guerrero Jr., which they had, but a lot of their other guys as well, whether that's Dalton Varsho, George Springer offensively. And some of them panned out, some of them didn't, because you had a big regression in Bichette. If you have to rely on a guy like Yoan Moncada, who's only 29 years old, but if you're hoping on him to not only stay healthy, but produce like he used to and put up maybe a 2 to 3 WAR, he's only put up above a 2 WAR twice in his 8-year career. So it's like going against the grain here. I would prefer them to sign guys who have more experience, more reliability, because they need their floor to be higher. Their floor last year was quite bad, and ultimately let them only get 74 wins in a season where Vladimir Guerrero Jr. had an MVP caliber season. So, and he won the Silver Slugger Award. So it's a very interesting conversation to have. And if you sign Yoan Moncada, he goes out, he plays 130 games, and he has a 650 OPS and he puts up a 1 WAR. Like, that's not a good signing. We saw that last season. They signed Kevin Kiermaier. They signed Justin Turner, all these guys, and none of them really panned out. They ultimately flipped them for assets. Sorry. And again, it's just not going to work out if they do this. So I'm not super intrigued by this, but it is interesting. It could be a fit if they think they can buy low on him and he can come back and be a very good player. Third base is a position that is still up in the air for the Toronto Blue Jays. And again, if you strike out on a guy like Juan Soto, they need to have contingency plans. I'm not saying your contingency plan for missing out on Juan Soto is Yoan Moncada, but he can maybe be a part of a bigger thing going forward. But again, that would take them out of the race for Alex Bregman, who's supposedly seeking over $300 million. So I don't know if they should even go for that. But either way, free agency is heating up fast, and we'll keep you up to date with all of it. So make sure to hit the subscribe button, and let me know down below what your thoughts are on Yoan Moncada as well as the other move that they made.